Factsverse presents 19 Things No One Knows About Hulk Hogan. When you think of the world of professional wrestling and the WWE, one of the first names that usually comes to mind is Hulk Hogan. He was born Terry Jean Bollea on August 11, 1953, and then he got his start in wrestling in 1979. It was the owner of the WWE, Vince McMahon Sr., who discovered him. After being discovered, he became one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. If you're a fan of Hulk Hogan, there's a good chance that you don't know everything there is to know about him, but we're about to find out. Here are 19 things you probably don't know about Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan was very dedicated to his craft, which is why he is one of the best. He was so dedicated his leg was broken intentionally during training. He was training with Hiro Matsuda, a legend in the wrestling world, and on his first day of training he worked so hard that he became faint. Well, soon he broke his leg. Hulk returned a few months later after his leg healed. Hulk Hogan wasn't the only name that he went by in the ring. He went by several other stage names first. He began as Sterling Gordon, and then Terry Boulder, and when he'd enter the ring wearing a mask he was Super Destroyer. When he started being called Hulk Hogan, that name stuck and the rest is history. Hulk's nickname came after he appeared on a local talk show with Lou Ferrigno. Back then, Lou was starring as the Incredible Hulk on television. During the appearance, the show's host pointed out that Terry was actually bigger than Lou, and somehow that became part of the nickname. Vince McMahon wanted him to adopt an Irish persona, which is how he became Hulk Hogan. When Terry started using the name Hulk Hogan, Marvel Comics was not very happy about it. They didn't want him using the name that they had trademarked. Things got worse when the announcers were calling him the Incredible Hulk Hogan. Eventually, Vince McMahon struck a deal with Marvel, allowing Terry to use the name Hulk Hogan for 25 years. They just had to leave the words The Incredible off the title. In 2005, Hulk Hogan purchased the rights for the name again from Marvel Comics. The Make-A-Wish Foundation helps children with terminal illnesses by making their dreams come true, and one popular wish from terminal children was to meet Hulk Hogan. Over the years, he has granted over 200 wishes for children to meet him. He's one of the most active celebrities with the charity. Before Terry entered the ring as Hulk Hogan, he was a musician in a band called Ruckus. He was on the road with the band before becoming a studio musician in Atlanta. He started playing guitar in junior high because, unlike many of his classmates, he wasn't into sports, believe it or not. Those who didn't like sports would take up music. He says he did like baseball and was fairly good at it, but he needed something to do for the rest of the year. Hulk says back then he was really into music and into long hair, so being in a band just fit. Hulk says that when he heard that Metallica was looking for a new bass player, he wanted to join the band. He got plenty of tapes together to send to them. He used a couple of tapes from his old band and a couple of tapes that he produced with Simon Cowell. Years later, Simon produced an old Gary Glitter song for him called Leader of the Gang. After getting everything together, he sent the tapes to Metallica. But as I'm sure you can guess, he never got a response. And thank goodness, otherwise we wouldn't have Hulk Hogan today. Hulk was asked by NBC to interview the band One Direction. He agreed, and then One Direction's management team asked if he'd perform a song with them. Hulk told them that if they had a song with a standard chord progression and he could hear it really quick, he'd be able to do it. He thought performing with them would be fun. Hulk says the reason he needed a standard chord progression was that he didn't know any of One Direction's songs. Before becoming a wrestling icon, Hulk Hogan had a regular job. Back then, he was going still by his real name, Terry Bollea, and he worked as a bank teller. He realized rather quickly, though, that wasn't for him, and he quit after just 2 days. While the film Batman and Robin was being cast, Hulk Hogan was considered for a role. The film's director Joel Schumacher considered him for the part of Mr. Freeze. He was the third in line after Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone. Since Arnold Schwarzenegger accepted the role, though, they rescinded Hulk's offer. It's too bad, he would have made a great Bane, too. Early in his career, Hulk Hogan was a bank teller, a musician, and he almost starred in Batman and Robin, but what many people don't know is that he was nearly a pro baseball player. In high school, he played baseball, and he was very good. He was so good that the Cincinnati Reds and the New York Yankees were scouting him as a possible pitcher. Many athletes are superstitious, but their superstitions would often revolve around the game. Hulk Hogan is superstitious, but in a completely different way. When he flies, he'll only wear red underwear. Now, he's never explained the reason for this particular superstition, but he's been doing it for many years. Now, I can only assume it's because Superman had red underwear and he would also fly and nothing would be able to take him down. Just a guess, though. Hulk Hogan appeared on the talk show Hot Properties to promote the upcoming WrestleMania event. And while on stage, Hulk demonstrated his moves on one of the comedians, Richard Belzer, who was also a guest on the show. Well, Hulk ended up accidentally knocking Belzer unconscious, and that resulted in a $5 million lawsuit. The case was eventually settled out of court. When Hulk Hogan was in New Jersey, the police were called to his home, and he ended up being arrested for possessing a firearm. He entered a pre-trial intervention program, and he ended up serving 6 months probation without getting into any further trouble. When the 6 months were up, the felony charge was dropped. When Hulk Hogan found out that Mean Gene Okerlund died, he was devastated. He says it felt as though his Adam's apple went backwards in his throat. At first, his wife Linda thought he was having a heart attack. Hulk told People magazine he had just talked to Gene a couple of weeks before his death. The two men planned to get together the weekend after he returned home from a New Year's trip. Wrestling does a lot to a person's body. During his career, Hulk Hogan has had several surgeries, including procedures on his back, hip, and knee. It's caused him to lose at least 3 inches in height. Sports Illustrated has an athlete on every cover. Most are baseball players, football players, hockey players, golfers, tennis players. Hulk Hogan is the only professional wrestler so far to make the cover. He was on the cover of the April 26, 1985 issue wearing a band on his head that read Hulkster. On the cover, the magazine referred to him as pro wrestling's top banana. Hulk Hogan's daughter, Brooke Hogan, wanted to follow in her father's footsteps. When she was old enough, she tried to become a professional wrestler. Unfortunately, things did not go as well for her in the industry as they did for her father. She joined TNA, but she was seen more as a personality than a professional wrestler. Like her father, she also tried her hand in music. Hulk Hogan's wife of many years, Linda, was planning to file for divorce. At the time, she was dating a friend of the couple's teenage son. Hulk had no idea of his wife's plans until he was being interviewed in 2007. A reporter for the St. Petersburg Times asked for a comment about his upcoming divorce. Hulk was shocked. Hulk told the reporter that he caught him off guard because he didn't know anything about his upcoming divorce. He told the reporter his wife had been in California for the last 3 weeks. He had to pull over for a few minutes to make some calls to find out what was going on. According to Hulk, there were no problems in the marriage. He had no idea that it was coming. What other interesting tidbits of knowledge do you know about Hulk Hogan? Tell us about them in the comments, and subscribe for more.